Well, cruise tipping, cruise gratuities continues to be a hot button issue. I see more and more people saying that they are removing the assigned gratuities, the gratuities that the cruise line say you should pay. And it's made me start to think about it. I've analyzed a bunch of feedback from you guys, and of course, I've got my own thoughts. And well, I want to go through 5 reasons I've come up with why people are removing cruise tips. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loco. Welcome to essentially my guide for cruise tippings. We're going to look at the 5 reasons I believe people are removing their cruise gratuities. Then I'm going to give you a cruise line by cruise line breakdown of what they are charging for cruise gratuities. And then I've got a list of who I tip on a cruise. So all that and more in today's episode. If you enjoy staying up to date with everything going on in cruising, please consider subscribing. And if you like, well, wait till you figure out whether or not you like the show. But toward the end, if you like it, hit the like button. Okay, here, 5 reasons why people removed their gratuities. Number 1, and this is probably the most significant one, lack of transparency. Everybody that I've talked to that specifically says they remove cruise gratuities, their primary reason for doing so is it is unclear. It is unclear who are getting the assigned gratuities. And I think it's a fair criticism. Cruise lines do often define who's getting the cruise gratuities, but there's always some weird nebulous thing going on there. It's going to be your room steward. It's going to be your food service workers, but it may also be some person you never see who's unnamed. It's in that uncertainty there that people are like, what am I doing? I'm just automatically paying some unseen person. Why am I doing that? I think that's one reason. Another reason is people don't feel like when you give an assigned gratuity or when you just automatically pay the gratuity that you're taking into consideration the service that you got. Traditionally, and still probably true, that tips, gratuities should be tied to the service level. You get mediocre service, you tip less. You get the average service, you tip average. You get exceptional service, you're more likely to tip exceptionally. And with this assigned gratuity scenario, the setup that currently exists in cruising, it almost takes the service level out of the equation, and most people don't think that's the way that tipping should work. The third reason that I think people are removing their cruise tipping is they like the more personal experience. They don't want just some computer somewhere to take some of their money and call that their cruise gratuity. There's more personal satisfaction when you hand somebody who's given you service some money, when you can look them in the eye and you can say thank you for the service. I think people remove their cruise gratuity so that they can have that personal impact, so that they can deal with the people that have dealt with them, and they can do that with the money. And I think this automatic gratuity system somewhat removes that personal experience. Fourth reason I feel like people are removing their gratuities is some people want to pay more than the assigned gratuity. We're going to get into it later, what the different cruise lines charge on a daily basis. Some people are a lot more generous than that, and they would rather tip more, and they don't want the computer to take some of the money and then they put on top of it. Some people want to pay more. And then the fifth reason and the counter to that is, well, some people just want to pay less. Some people think that the assigned gratuities is too much. Some people think that charging the same assigned gratuity for a kid, a third person in a cabin, is outrageous, that you shouldn't pay as much for a kid or a third person in a cabin when you've already paid for the 2 adults. So those are my 5 reasons. Lack of transparency, doesn't properly feel tied to the service that you're getting. It doesn't feel personal. Sometimes you want to give more and sometimes you want to give less. All right, let me quickly run through on a cruise line by cruise line basis how much currently right here in September of 2025 these cruise lines are charging. I pulled all of this from each of the cruise lines website. We'll start with Princess Cruises. For suites, $19 per day. Mini Suites Cabanas, Reserve Collection, $18 a day. All other stateroom types, $17 a day. For all of these cruise lines, when it comes to beverages, if you're buying individual beverages, there's going to be a gratuity added. That's somewhere between 15 and 20%, depending on which cruise line you're on. Every specialty dining restaurant that you eat at, there's going to be a gratuity added. Spa services, gratuity added. So there's a lot of things that you're going to get charged a gratuity for beyond just your automatic gratuity. Some people get that confused. Like, okay, I paid $17 a day for my cabin for a gratuity. Does that mean I don't pay gratuities on drinks? No, that's not true. You buy a drink package, you pay a gratuity, or every individual drink that you buy, that you're paying individually a la carte for, you're going to get charged a gratuity. All right, let's look at celebrity. $18 per day will be applied to inside ocean view veranda staterooms, $19 a day, concierge and aqua class, $23 per day to the retreat staterooms. Their beverage gratuity is 20%. Cunard charges $17 a day for the Britannia staterooms, but for the Queen's and Princess Grill Suite, those are $19 per day. Let's look at this graphic from Virgin Voyages. Their gratuities are zero. And I like how they show a comparison on the left and the right of the premium and the contemporary, showing that on most contemporary cruise lines, you average $224 for a week in gratuities. And on the premium lines, you average $252. But if you look at the gratuities for Virgin Voyages, a zero. This is a great chart. They're trying to show you the total cost of cruising, because Virgin at its price point does seem like it's more expensive. But if you look at what's included, they're making the case that it's apples to apples. But no gratuities. Disney Cruise Line recommends $16 per day per guest for its regular cabins. If you're staying in the concierge or the suite, they recommend $27.25. And I do want to call this out because included on this webpage is really a great encapsulation of how the whole cruise industry is looking at tipping right now. They say, for guest convenience, if you did not get a chance to prepay before boarding the ship, the optional gratuity amount will be added to your onboard account. Once on board the ship, if you wish to remove or adjust the amount of your optional gratuities, please visit guest services. So to me, it's a little oxymoronic. They're optional gratuities that will be automatically assigned to you. The option for tips are automatically assigned. This is true on most cruise lines. And what's true on most cruise lines is that you can go through the rigmarole of getting them removed. The optional thing that was forced on you. Disney, bless them, they're also one of those cruise lines that in addition to you getting automatically assigned, they're also going to put envelopes in your cabin. Royal Caribbean does. Many of the cruise lines will put an envelope in there for extra tip. Here's the numbers for Holland America line. Non-suite staterooms, $17 per day. Suite guests, $19 per day. Their beverage is an 18% gratuity. Here's Viking Ocean, currently $17 per day, but it goes up to $20 per day after January the 1st, 2026. And then they also say the thing that Disney said, to save you the worry over whom to tip, we offer two options. You can either prepay your gratuities before you get on the cruise at the recommended rate, or if you have not pre-purchased, we will automatically add them. And again, it's important to note, as they have on the webpage here, this is completely at your own discretion, the automatically assigned gratuities. Here we go. Here is Norwegian Cruise Line. And if I'm reading this right, for bookings that were made after January the 1st, 2023, $20 per person for the club balcony suite and below. So I'm assuming that would include all the other categories. And then if you are in the Haven and or a suite, it will be $25. Carnival Cruise Lines break it down between suites and other cabins. The other cabins are, inside balcony ocean view, $16 per day per person. And then the suite staterooms, $18 per day per person. And Royal Caribbean, we have $18.50 per guest per day on all staterooms other than suites. And then suites, of course, more expensive, $21 per day. Drinks on Royal Caribbean, 18% gratuity. So that's just a simple breakdown of what 11 cruise lines charge when it comes to cruise gratuities. I do want to say two more things. I want to tell you about double tipping, and I also want to tell you who I particularly tip on a cruise. Let's go double tipping first. You've got to be careful when you go on a cruise, because there are opportunities where you will have already tipped where there will be a solicitation of an additional tip. So, some of these cruise lines, when you're purchasing beverages one at a time, a la carte, you'll have to sign a ticket, and that ticket will have a tip line on it, but it will also, most of the time, have a line item that shows that base 15 to 20% gratuity. So maybe you buy, say, a soda, for example, you buy a soda for $3.25, then there's going to be a line that shows the 18% gratuity, whatever that is, and then there's going to be a line that says additional tip. And most of the time, it very clearly says additional tip, but I think we're so conditioned that if we see a tip line of any kind, we add tip to it, and then we sign the ticket. And look, I'm one of those people that can't leave a tip line empty. One of the crew members, I was doing that, I think, at a coffee bar or something like that. I was adding $1 every time, and they pulled me aside and they said, "Hey, don't do that. We're not really going to see the money." essentially they were saying, if you want me to get $1 for making your coffee, then give me $1. I mean, they didn't say it that straightforward, but they were letting me know that me writing $1 on the additional tip line was essentially sending that dollar into the abyss. Interesting stuff with double tipping. Be careful. And then I want to talk about who specifically I tip on a cruise. I give money to the person that takes my luggage outside of the cruise terminal. Now, there's some conversation whether these people are like longshoremen or they work for the port. They're already well paid. Should we be tipping them? The social convention in North America is that person that handles your bag outside of the cruise terminal, you should give them a tip. Any tip, I guess. Like when I normally give $2 or $3 a bag. Sometimes I've given $5 a bag. But I don't know. I don't know if you don't tip, if your bag's not going to show up. I don't believe that's true. But I always give those guys a tip. Now, on the cruise, I want to say this. I always pay the assigned gratuity. As much as I don't like that system, as much as I don't like somebody telling me that I have an optional thing that I can pay that you're going to automatically charge me, I still never go down there for two reasons. I'm afraid of the mystery. I'm afraid that if I remove my cruise gratuity, that somebody that should be getting paid is not going to get paid. They've scared me. They've convinced me. I bought the line that there's mystery people in the back that are going to be underpaid if I don't pay my gratuity, and I have the ability to be generous. So shame on me, right? Because if somebody's getting over, well, not shame on me. If somebody's getting over on me by the things that they're saying, if a cruise company's getting over on me by the language they're putting out and by making things less than transparent, shame on them. But I'm not going to screw the worker over because somebody's been, questionable toward me. So I always pay the assigned gratuities on a cruise ship. Number 3, I like to test the fate. So I always do my best to tip casino workers, even when I'm losing. The cool thing about the casino, most casino workers accept the idea that you're going to tip them by betting for them. So we're in it together. If I'm playing a hand of blackjack, I'll make a bet for myself, and I may make a bet for the dealer, and then they can, they're on the hook too for whether or not we win. When I'm betting for the dealer, I'm doing that with the casino chips that I have, but also if I'm getting beverage service in the casino, if there's somebody bringing me a drink at the blackjack table or at the craps table or at the slot machine for the lovely Jenny B. Well, at the slot machine's different. At the table, I will tip them with a casino chip. You can do that. They take those casino chips and they can turn that in for their tips. Most of the time when Jenny's at the slot machine, she's carrying $1 bills so that she can tip the person that's bringing the drink. Because a lot of times she has included drinks. It's not costing her anything, so she wants to make sure that she tips the person that's bringing her the free drink. Number 4, bartenders and baristas. I do tip bartenders and baristas. Traditionally, I used to do it on that additional tip line, but now I'm more inclined to take $1 or $2 with me and hand that out. If they bring me drinks, or if the same bartender is serving me drinks, then I'll tip them a few dollars for that round of drinks, that kind of thing. I normally do that with cash. That's an example of double tipping in both cases. Both of those times, I already got charged a tip on the line item, but I do get satisfaction knowing that I can give somebody $1 and they will have the dollar, because most of these tips are pooled. Like if you read the fine print on, well, it's not really fine print, but if you read those, tipping explanations, a lot of them say these are pooled together. So it's not like, somebody could be doing a horrible job somewhere and you're trying to tip extra on the writing it out for somebody that's helped you right in your face. And they may not get the extra money that you give them unless you actually give them money. Cash is king. Now back off of the ship, I traditionally try to keep a few dollars around to tip tour guides, to tip shuttle bus operators, to tip cab drivers. Fortunately, in Uber, you can tip in the app and they will get that money, but I keep money around for that. And then I'm also a big believer that if you, especially if you film or photograph a street performer and they've got a hat out or a bucket out, you should tip them. But that really could just be the street performer in me. I've stood on a street with a hat out and juggled before and much appreciated the tips and always questioned somebody that would film or take my picture but not leave anything. But again, that may be my own hang up. I think that's everybody I tip on a cruise ship. Like I said in the beginning, cruise ship tipping, cruise gratuities, a hot button issue. I'll make the appeal again. I wish the cruise lines would just include it in the fare. I think Virgin Voyages has it right. Two distinct satisfactory things on Virgin Voyages: the no kids, was a very satisfactory feeling. And then not worrying about gratuities and just trusting that everybody was making the money they were supposed to make. That was fantastic. Even in the casino, when I would place a bet for the dealer, they were like, you don't have to tip. I'm like, yeah, no, it's okay. To me, that's part of gambling. Where are you at on this thing? Are you removing your gratuities? Do you double tip? Do you feel a way about people that remove their gratuities? Do you feel a way about people that don't remove their gratuities? Like I said earlier, if you enjoyed the presentation, please hit the thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. This is Tony for La Lido Loca. Until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.